afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Urban Review, the show that is brought to you by the Center for Urban Youth and Family Development and the Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development. And because we are funded by the Office of National Drug Control Policy, I like to mention that the thoughts and views that are presented on this show are not necessarily those of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. And on that note, we'd like to welcome you today to our show. We're very excited. We have a very exciting show lined up for you. But first, we'd like to make a few announcements and talk about some of the things that we've done over the last few weeks. Since the last time I've seen you, I was traveling to Dallas, Texas to be a participant in the Mid-Year Training Institute for the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. I also traveled to Dallas a second time to participate in the National Coalition Training Academy. And as you know, our Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development has a vision of creating a drug-free community on Detroit's West Side. And the mission of the Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development is to improve outcomes for the West Side Detroit youth and their families by establishing and strengthening community collaboratives that promote positive youth development and community revitalization through the prevention of youth substance abuse and other problems behaviors. The Center for Urban Youth and Family Development, in conjunction with the Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development mission statement, was crafted to reflect the work to be done and accomplished by a meaningful partnership and establish resources throughout the West Side community. And we are very pleased to announce that today at 6 o'clock p.m. we will be having our monthly Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development meeting. That meeting will take place at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church on the second floor in the Vincent Room. And that is 18700, that's 18700 James Cousins Highway. That's the service drive of the Lodge Freeway right before you get to 7 Mile, just south of 7 Mile. But if you can't make it in person, you can feel free to call in to our call in to our coalition meeting. And that number is 712-770-5505. Once again, that's 712-770-5505, and use access code 395319. That's access code 395319. And that will give you the opportunity to participate in a conference call for the Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development meeting. And you will have an opportunity to be there free of charge on a conference call and give us your opinions and get the insight that we are presenting today. And today we will be going over our logic model as well as our mission statement, and we'll talk about the problems that we're trying to address, which briefly include marijuana use, underage drinking, and tobacco use and vaping. We'll be talking about the fact that we've created a logic model that gives all of the detail and all of the data about the strategies that we're going to be utilizing. But briefly, we're going to be providing information, we're going to provide support, we're going to change policies, we're going to change barriers and access, and we're going to create new incentives and consequences associated with the problem behaviors, as well as build skills and kind of alter the physical design of our community. One of our big problems is that we have so many abandoned buildings that need to be boarded up, because we know that some of our youth are using those properties to sell and purchase marijuana and other illegal substances, and in often cases they're using them to give little parties and create a nuisance and also use drugs. So we want to come up with some consequences. We know that our police department is burdened and can't be running around issuing MPIs or minors in possession tickets anymore. But we do want to come up with some consequences, maybe for those landlords, some incentives for them to board up those buildings and change the design of those facilities. So, and on that note, I think one of the things that we would like to do today is introduce one of our wonderful guests, Ms. Pamela Morgan, who is here to give us some insight on marijuana use among our young people. We have so many outlets today with so much availability. There is a reduced perception of harm because oftentimes our young people are seeing their parents use it, they're seeing their acquaintances and their friends use it. It has been legalized for recreational purposes, and we need some strategies and some methods and processes that we can use to motivate our young people to stay away from it. Ms. Morgan is here from Key Insights LLC. She provides prevention and education on substance abuse. She also does ethics training, and she works with youth that are oftentimes in the juvenile detention system. So, Ms. Morgan, welcome to our show. Thank you for being here. And just give us a little insight and background on how you address with these young people the issue of utilizing marijuana and the impact that it's having on them.
You know, one of the things that you said was in reference to the legalization for recreational use, and then our youth seeing so many of their heroes, their parents, their uncles, their aunts, even grandparents, smoking marijuana, and it desensitizes them. It causes them to look at it as being harmless. And in fact, for the adolescent, first and foremost, one of the things that I share with them is that even if it's legalized for recreational use, it's not legalized for adolescents.
Absolutely.
It is still, you're still breaking the law when you're an adolescent and you use marijuana. And I work with children who are in the juvenile detention facility, and 80% of those children who are arrested and detained at the facility, 80% of them screen positive for drugs, and 60% of that 80% screen positive for marijuana.
Wow.
You know, and one of the things that they don't realize, what I do is I give them a lot of facts. I give them a lot of information that may help them make some informed decisions.
Okay.
Because what we see happening is that they're making decisions to use based on what they see in their environment and what they see others doing, and even what they hear the government doing as far as legalization. And again, being desensitized, but they're not making decisions based on facts, and so they're not making informed decisions.
Right.
So my role is to give them education, to educate them, and to help them process crime and consequences, behavior and consequences, so that they can recognize the outcome, what could possibly happen to them as a result of doing what they think is harmless. Because one of the things that I hear them saying regularly is, what's the big deal?
Right.
You know, what's the big deal, Miss Morgan? Mrs. Morgan, what's the big deal about smoking marijuana? Did you smoke marijuana when you were a teenager? You know, and I disclose to them that, it is a big deal.
Right.
I tried it as a young person. I believe it was a gateway, because though marijuana never became my drug of choice, it opened me up. It diminished my inhibitions. It caused me to not be careful and think things through. And so it opened me up to the idea of using other drugs, which led eventually for me to cocaine and eventually crack cocaine.
Right. And you're now celebrating like 28 years?
28 years, yes. I celebrated 28 years in March.
That's phenomenal. That is beautiful. But you speak from a seat of experience.
Yes.
And you know what you're talking about from a personal standpoint.
From a personal standpoint and from an educational standpoint.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that I share with them. I'm not just telling you something that I read about or something that I learned when I achieved my degree. No, I'm not just coming to you as a professional, but I'm coming to you also from a personal standpoint. And I don't have a problem with sharing my story with them, because I think it's impacting that they realize that, there's nothing new under the sun, and this thing that they think they're doing and they think they're creating this new phenomenon, has been in existence for a very long time. And now we as adults are experiencing some of the consequences of our behaviors that we started when we were their age.
Right. Now, what are some of the both short-term and long-term impacts on both the physical and the neurological and mental impacts of using marijuana as an adolescent?
One of the things that they don't realize, because they see a lot of adults, some of the adults they see are functional, and so they smoke, but they still hold a job down, or they manage to take care of business. But the adolescent brain is 3 times more likely to be affected in a long term than the adult brain, because the adolescent brain is not completely developed, and so because it's still in its process of developing, the marijuana use, as is with any drug use, interrupts the process of development for the brain. So that's number one, is to talk to them about the impact that using drugs has on the brain, and especially the underdeveloped brain. And so when we think about the brain, first and foremost, I talk to them. I like to give them handouts. I like to give them something that they can look at, and they can help me by reading along with me, taking turns reading. I do it in a group format, so they get a chance to participate if they want, and if they don't want to participate, they can just listen. And I always get young people who are willing to read, and so I get them to read some of the facts. And I start with the frontal lobe, and I talk to them about what that's responsible for, that the frontal lobe is responsible for decision making.
Right.
And smoking marijuana, as does drinking alcohol, affects that frontal lobe, in the brain, which hinders the ability to make healthy decisions. It hinders that ability. And so we talk about the frontal lobe, and even how that it affects impulses, impulse control. They become compulsive in their behaviors, and they don't have impulse control. They are responding to the need for immediate gratification. And so we talk about that.
And as you said, it lowers the inhibitions, and therefore you're ready and willing to take more risk.
You become a much more of a risk taker, living from one exciting experience to the next. Always look at, and being young, being an adolescent, we hear them say all the time, I'm bored. So being an adolescent, you're always looking for something exciting to do, and so drugs are readily available. And one of the things that really is very disturbing, emergency rooms report that the majority of young people who come through the emergency room with overdoses, they report getting the drugs from mom's or dad's medicine cabinet, grandma or grandpa's medicine cabinet. So it's available. So now we have this law that allows for adults to grow marijuana within the household, so many plants. So how much more access now do our young people have to marijuana? Who knows? Yes, the availability. What person that's growing X amount of plants in their home is checking to see if anything is missing every day? And so for some drugs, they may go to the medicine cabinet. For the marijuana, they just go to the parents' stash. Yes, the garden, the basement, the greenhouse, wherever it may be, or simply the stash in the drawer, just pinching off of it. Ultimately, they have easy access, and I mean that's nothing new. As a young person, myself, I remember my girlfriend, her mom had a bar, and so she would steal a little alcohol from the bar every morning, and we'd take a little bit, drink a little bit before we went to school. But with the marijuana access, and the desensitization that our young people are experiencing because of the legalization of quote-unquote recreational use, we will definitely see that impacting the addiction, because marijuana is addictive, and people have said for years marijuana is not addictive, and what's the big deal? But it is a big deal, and it is addictive.
And today's marijuana is not our grandmother's marijuana.
Absolutely not.
It's not the stuff they were smoking at Woodstock. And on the 50th anniversary, I think it is today, of Woodstock.
Wow.
Yeah, but so it's not the same potency, and those are some of the policies that we need to look at if we're going to sell this stuff as recreational use. Then just like with alcohol, you know, when you're going to buy a 100 proof bottle of liquor versus a 80 proof bottle of
Absolutely.
liquor, and that type of labeling should be on marijuana products as well. As we talk about the strategies that are being utilized, you kind of seem to focus really on education, and I think I've heard you say before when we were at the Raising the Bar conference this last week with the Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority that sometimes it doesn't have an impact immediately, but you're planting a seed and the young
Sure.
person is developing that understanding and
Yes.
getting that level of education.
Absolutely, because again, we want them to be able to make informed decisions.
Right.
You know, as a young person growing up, I didn't get educated on the impact of drug use. And so I didn't make an informed decision.
Right.
You know, I went out partying, whatever was passed around, it's like, let me try that. No information as to what this could cost me in the long run. And some people are going to use anyway, but at least you had a chance to get some information. And because I have a fixed audience, because they're incarcerated, you know,
Right.
so I have a fixed audience. And I talk to them about the progression of addiction. It may start out recreational. Most drug use starts out either recreational or for medical purposes.
Right.
And then it escalates from use to misuse, from misuse to abuse, and from abuse to dependence. And so, you know, how many of you all are addicted to marijuana? And I'll get maybe 3 or 4 hands out of 10, you know. And then as I start talking about one of the facts that identify dependence is, do you need to smoke to eat? Do you need to smoke in order to have an appetite? And a lot of the young people are already identifying that as one of the characteristics. That is one of the characteristics that they identify with, and that is that they need to smoke in the morning before they have an appetite to eat. That identifies dependence.
Right.
And so they've gone from recreational use to misuse and abuse, and the misuse and abuse is identified by I asked them, do you ever head out to school but you don't make it because you stop by your friend's house and you just smoke? We're just gonna smoke 1 or 2 puffs, but you get caught up and you're there all day playing video games and
Right.
smoking. Before you know it, the sun is going down.
Right.
You never made it to where you were supposed
Lost
to
your
be.
perspective on time and
Absolutely.
reality.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, you know, Ms. Morgan, I really want to thank you for taking the time out to come and share with us on the show. And I think the biggest thing that we gained out of this is that education is the key.
Absolutely.
Awareness is the factor, and that is one of our key strategies as we provide information. We're going to disseminate prevention information at public and community events, as we did at the event earlier this week at Cobo Hall, the Raising the Bar conference. And we'll be doing that later this week, in fact, on tomorrow, with our prostate cancer prevention and awareness and Survivor Celebration golf outing that we're going to be having out at Idlewild Golf Course. And we've already got 128 golfers lined up to be
Wow.
at that spectacular event. So we've only got a few more slots open. If you're interested, go to our website, www.cuyfd.detroit.org, and sign up for the show. And right after this brief commercial message, we'll be back to wrap up our show. But once again, we want to thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Thank you so
for
much
coming
for
to the
having
show.
me.
You're no stranger to this show. This is actually your second appearance.
Yes.
And we appreciate you coming out because you're such a wealth of information. So after we come back from our brief commercial announcement, we'll be here to wrap up the show and give you a few last announcements. But thank you for watching Urban Review. We'll be right back.
The non-medical use of prescription drugs, including opioids, is a growing concern in our communities, affecting all ages. including our youth. If the medication wasn't prescribed to you or has expired, don't take it. If your name isn't on the bottle, it's not meant for you to swallow. Addiction is real, and lives are being ruined. Or worse yet, lost.
Visit PreventionDetroit.org/opioids to find prescription Dropbox locations.
You love your Avis Ford.
You will love your Avis Ford, because at Avis Ford, we make it easy to get you your no money down monthly payment right over the phone. We call it Shop by Phone, and it's the best way we know to get you your payment options fast. You want leather and a sunroof? How about an upgrade to all-wheel drive? Just give us a call.
You love it.
Shop online, shop by phone, or visit us at Telegraph at 12 Mile. Call 1-800-SHOP-FORD.
Meet Danny, high school senior, 17 years of age, all A student. Danny is just now finding out he scored 1,490 out of 1,600 on his SAT. Danny's friend decided to ask, "How did you do it?" Danny replied, "I believe every day is a test. To fail or succeed, you choose." The effects of vaping is the one test that Danny chose not to study for.
Vaping does not discriminate on who becomes addicted. Over 2 million high school students use some type of electronic cigarette device. The top tobacco companies also own vaping devices. The FDA found that vaping contains some of the same toxic chemicals as regular cigarettes that lead to cancer. So whether you smoke traditional cigarettes with tobacco or smoke electronic cigarettes using nicotine, your health is at risk. There's no safe way to smoke. For more information, contact the Center for Urban Youth and Family Development.
Well, once again, welcome to Urban Review. We want to thank Ms. Pamela Morgan from Insight LLC, the training company that provides prevention, education, and substance abuse prevention training, treatment, and ethics training. She gave us a wealth of information about how we can work with our young adults and our young adolescents to make them understand that marijuana is not legal for them until they reach the age of 21, and the reasons why and the impact that it's going to have on their health and the long-term impact that it has on them neurologically. Secondly, we want to announce once again that our prostate cancer survivors golf outing is going to take place tomorrow. The tee time is at 7:30. We'll have a shotgun start, and it's going to be an exciting event. We have our friends from Avis Ford that are putting up a 2019 Ford vehicle, brand new, for a hole-in-one on number 17. We also have a $10,000 prize that's insured by American Hole-in-One Insurance for a hole-in-one on number 17. So if you hit it, we will pay. Come on out. It's going to be a fantastic time for only $50. That includes 18 holes with a cart, lunch at the turn, a full dinner afterwards, prizes, trophies, and it will give you an automatic entry into our raffle, which the grand prize is a 3-day trip to Las Vegas. So come on out and participate in our wonderful golf outing. This afternoon, later on, this evening actually, at 6:00 p.m., we will be having our monthly Coalition for Urban Youth and Family Development meeting. That will take place at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church, 18700 James Cousins Highway, in the Vincent Room. That is just south of 7 Mile on the service drive of the Lodge Freeway. And if you cannot come in person, feel free to call in and be a part of our free conference call. That number is 712-770-5505. Once again, that's 712-770-5505. and then the access code is 395319. Once again, that's 395319. And we'd like to thank all of our sponsors, including the Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority, that is going to be sponsoring a recovery walk on Belle Isle, which will take place on September the 14th. And it is a fantastic event, and Miss Morgan, that was here earlier with us on the show, is going to be one of the speakers at that event. And then also, come on out on August the 22nd to the Coalition for Healthy Youth Family Cookout event, and that is going to take place at 2400 East McNichols. That's 2400 East McNichols at the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependency. That's the NCADD headquarters, and that's going to be a fantastic event with backpack giveaways, food, and prizes. If you would like to support our backpack giveaway, please go over to the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependency at 2400 East McNichols and drop off your supplies. You can also drop them off at a Kubilan Village on the east side, and you can also drop them off at the Detroit Association for Black Organizations on the west side, and that is at the corner of Wyoming and Grand River. And as we close out the show today, we'd like to close out with the words that we always close out with, and those are the words that Nelson Mandela said to himself each and every day during his 27 years of captivity, and that is, out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods there be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud, and under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloodied but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid, for it matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the captain of my fate and the master of my soul. And as we end the show, I want you to keep on pressing through. Remember that character plus education plus perseverance plus uplift times friendship, love, and truth is going to equal peace, happiness, and prosperity. So when you're up against a trouble, meet it squarely face to face. Plant your feet, set your shoulder, lift your chin, and take a brace. And if the worst is bound to happen, in spite of all that you can do, remember you may fail, but you may conquer. See it through. Black may be the clouds about you, and your future may seem grim, but don't let your nerve desert you. Keep yourself in fighting trim. And if it's veiled, to try and dodge it in spite of all that you can do, remember running from it will not save you. See it through. Even hope may seem but futile when with troubles you'll be set. But remember, you're simply facing what other men have met. So if you fail, fall still fighting. Don't give up whatever you do. Keep your eyes to the front, your head high to the finish, and see it through. Thank you for watching Urban Review.